All right, so good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me? Quick check. By show of hands, I know if you're a dude here, you're not doing this, but so I guess I'll just say to the ladies in the house. As we look at this movie, Invictus, one of my favorites, kind of unknown. I don't think it got as much promotion as it should have, but it was the true story of Nelson Mandela. Now get this, he spent 27 years in prison. He was allowed one visit a year for 30 minutes. And through all of this, they said prisoners, everybody was amazed at how he responded. He never lost his mind. He never mistreated anyone. And literally 27 years, then comes out, becomes president. And one of the phrases in the movie that's so profound that actually was written is a guy said, I don't know how that you can stay in a tiny cell for 27 years and come out of it ready to forgive all those people who put you there. And that's exactly what he did. So today we're going to talk about mean people. Mean people, and what do we do with them? Now, I was going to say bad, but most people I know when you talk about bad people, they're like, oh, they're not really bad. They're just kind of mean. So we'll say mean, okay? But mean people, and I'm talking not the people that bug you, right? Everyone has people that bug them. But I'm talking about truly like they're like cunning, and deep down you're like, I don't trust them. I don't like being around them. They bother me at times because truly when I walk away, I know they're telling someone else something completely different. So it's just like, man, they're just mean. And sometimes they say stuff about me. I didn't do anything, on and on and on. Mean people, okay? So today, as we look at this, I want to kind of challenge you to think about mean people and what do we do with them? Because I think the whole kind of big idea of this movie that's so amazing to me is how do we respond when we're mistreated? How do we respond when we're off balance? And that's what mean people and kind of manipulative and rude and cunning, that's what they do. They keep us off balance where we're not even truly ourselves. Well, in case you don't know much about me, I'm Trent, one of the leaders, and my wife, who's in the service, she grew up in a really amazing, good church home. Great family, love her parents, love her sisters, great family. But they grew up, if you would watch Brady Bunch, right? That's what it would look. I visit when we were dating. I went in and they sat down, they hold hands, they pray, they sing songs, right? They literally sing like church songs I had never heard of. My kids don't even know them. They're singing it and they're eating. It's awesome, great family, love them. So she would go by this, what I would like to call the golden rule. Well, what's the golden rule? Well, if you know anything about the golden rule, a really wise guy named Jesus said it. He said, hey, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Got it? Now, you think if everyone in the world did this, the world would be a probably awesome place, because I'm not going to mistreat you because I don't want you to mistreat me. I'm not going to do. So this is like Christianity 101. If you're not a Christian, don't believe in God, cool. I'm going to get to that here in a second. But for those of you who claim, okay, I follow Jesus, this is kind of what's been known as the golden rule. The problem is when someone's mean to me, I don't want the golden rule. I want what I like to call the iron rule, okay? This is do to others what they've done to you, but worse, times 7, right? Like I told you, when my wife grew up, if you literally would film her house, it would be Brady Bunch, Little House on the Prairie. If you filmed our house, it would have been Cops, right? Or I don't know, Prison Break 101, just like all criminals ready to kill each other. Cops are coming, who's it for? Me, my brothers, my dad, we don't know, whatever. It's one of those. But one of the things, and some of you heard me tell us about my older brother, who truly is a criminal. Love him to death, but I to this day, I'm like, he'll do anything, and it's just known. He doesn't care. But growing up, that was our rule. If someone does something to you, and this isn't right, but you pay them back 7 times. And we all just knew that number in our head. It's like, my little brother come from school, he's like, hey, this kid did this. We're like, 7 times. So then you constantly scheme, how can we come back? Some of you are like, you're a sick, twisted guy. I know, I got it. But how do you do? It's so bad, though, a few months back, and Tony, the guy who was just up here talking about backpacks, one of our leaders, we were in the office. This was like on a Tuesday. We were talking, and he was like, I said something. He's like, come on, man, that's not right. I was like, no, really. And I'm kind of giving him a hard time. So he hit me right in the arm. He's like, come on, man. And he just hit me like that. Well, carpenter reflex kicked in, right? And in my mind, I was just like, I know I can't hit him 7 times, so what do I do? So I heart punched him about as hard as I could, right? Because I was just like hoping his heart would stop for just a little bit. And then he'd be like, okay, I'm not going to hit you in the arm anymore. Like, yeah, that's right, 7 times, friend, right? But as soon as I hit him, I was like, wait a minute. I'm a leader of a church. I just heart punched one of my coworkers who I think the world of. I love him, right? So I go home and tell my wife that, and she's like, you can't do that. She's talking to me like I'm a 6-year-old. You can't punch coworkers in the heart, right? No matter what they do. But it's true. And the reason I say that, if I'm honest, and you guys can all laugh and say, oh, we're not like that. We're not as vindictive. Okay, fine. But I know this. When someone mistreats you, or you feel like they mistreat you, or you feel like they're taking advantage of you, you as well as we want to say, I got to do something. Because I really only have two choices, right? I can either ignore it or react to it. But I have to do one or the other. And ignoring it just feels so weak. If you're a guy, you're like, I'll never do that, right? But if you're also, when you react, you're like, okay, I usually blew up. I made a scene. What do we do? So that's the golden rule, the iron rule. Here's the problem with the iron rule, though. The iron rule makes us like the people we dislike. It makes us very similar to them. If you want to be like the person that you don't like, then the iron rule does that, right? I can sit and be worked up, and I can't believe they're doing this, but you know what I do? I go home at bed at night, my wife goes to sleep, and I start scheming all the ways I'm going to pay back the people who've wronged me, right? I do. And again, I'll tell you real quick, side story. I didn't say this first service. I'll tell you how sick and twisted my older brother is. We went to the state football championships years back, and we were driving, and there was a car that cut us off in Canton, Ohio. And it was a little pickup truck, an older guy. He had on like a toboggan, right? And he just cut off. And the poor guy was old. He probably didn't even know he cut us off. My older brother's like, let's jump him. I'm like, no, I'm not going to prison, right? We're not doing that. But he's worked up about it. We're staying in a hotel. We get in bed that night, and he was staying we had 2 beds. He's staying in the same room as I am. He turns on a light. It's like 1:30 in the morning. And I see him go over, and he writes on the little hotel note card, right? And then he goes back to bed, just that. This is a true story. Literally like 5 seconds. Okay. So the next morning, waking up, I'm going to take a shower. He's still asleep. I go, look, you know what that paper said? I wish I would have kept it. It said, old guy, black toboggan, red truck. Like he was making his death. Like, I'll kill him one day. I'll find him. I'm like, dude, you're the most psycho human I've ever met in my life. But when we react, we become just like them. When we're manipulating, when we're scheming to make them pay back, then we're like, someone watching would be like, okay, that's kind of, I get you want to do that, and I get you don't feel like you have any other response, but the truth of the matter is, now you're just them. The very people you dislike, you become like with the iron rule. So it's like, okay, Trent, what to do? So I'm sure, oh, Jesus 101, you just say ignore them, right? Ignore them. Well, so we can either ignore or react. I would argue there actually is a third option, and it's the option I struggle with. I almost didn't even want to talk about this today because I struggle so much with this concept of the third way, because Jesus comes in and says, I'm not going to ask you to ignore him or to react to him. I'm going to give you a third option. So today we're going to go in the Old Testament. This is before Jesus was born. We're talking about a guy by the name of David. He was the one, if any of you didn't go to church, you know, probably heard the old Bible stories. He fought Goliath, this giant, whatever. But he became a king, okay? But before I get to this story, I want to kind of share with you guys, because it's very interesting to me. We're going to read a story about 3 characters. And we're going to see that 3 characters react all completely different in a situation. And in that situation, we're going to see the choice we have to make in those exact same situations. So we got 3 characters, 3 responses, 3 outcomes. Got it? But before I get that, I got to give you a backdrop of the story super fast. So David is the king. He's the man. Now, some of you in here have good families, like my wife. Awesome. Proud of you. Keep it up. But some of you come from the wrong side of the tracks, right? And for you, you know, like weird family, weird stuff. You go to family reunions, you're like, why are they kissing? I think they're related. I'm not comfortable with anything going on. That's my family reunions. But let me tell you how crazy David's family is. Go back and read this if you ever really want just an awesome story. David, so sick. David has a son who gets kind of the hots for his half-sister. Okay, his name's Amnon, and her name was Tamar. So he's like watching her. He's like, man, she's gorgeous. I like her. And everybody's like, dude, it's like your half-sister. No, we can't do that. He's like, I know, she's so hot, right? So I don't know if this story, let me see, was it in West Virginia? I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. Alabama, how about that? There's West Virginia people here, and you're going to shoot me after. Alabama, fair enough. No, so he's like, so he literally is telling that. So he talks to his buddy, and his buddy's like, man, just tell her you're sick one day, lay in bed, and when she comes in, just grab her. So this is a horrible story. He literally pretends like he's sick. She comes in to bring him something to eat. He grabs her, forces himself up on her, and rapes her. Well, when he does that, she obviously is in shame, and she walks out. Well, the other brother, who's his half-brother as well, his name's Absalom, he sees this, and he's like, what's going on? So he talks to her. He knows something's not right. Well, he comes to find out that, his brother did this to his sister, his half-brother. So he's like full rage. So he has this great plot scheme, comes up, and very shortly gets him out in a separate place and kills him. Well, David, the father, hears this. So he's got these two half-brothers, half-sisters, this horrible situation, and he's just devastated because he loves his son. He loves both his sons, but he loved his son. He knew he did something awful, but now he's dead, so he's in mourning of that. Well, the other son who killed him is like, you should have stepped in. It's your fault. So matter of fact, from now on, you're dead to me. I'm doing my own thing. I'm just going, and he comes up with this plan over 5 or 6 years to take over his dad's kingdom. So he hates him so much. Okay? So he literally, in one of the verses it says that he stands out at the gate. And when people come in, they're like, hey, we're here to talk to King David. We got a situation. We got issues. He'd be like, no, he's busy. But I'll talk to you. His son was. His dad didn't even know he was doing this. And he was like, here, let me help you out. And then as he helped him out, he would say, and by the way, don't you think it's good I at least listen to your problems? I mean, Dad doesn't. He doesn't care about anyone around here. So over 5 years, he literally gets this large mob of people who are like, yeah, we hate the king too. He's terrible. We love you. So he's plotting to become the new king by killing and overthrowing his dad. Okay, I try to go fast. Everybody kind of get that? I'm not great telling. Okay, so we'll catch up with the story. This is 2 Samuel 16, okay? David, son's been killed, daughter's been raped, other son now wants to kill him, be the new king. Bad situation. It says, as King David approached Bahurim, a man from the same clan as Saul's family, who was the old king, came out from there. His name was Shimei, son of Gera. And he cursed as he came out. He pelted David and all the king's officials with stones, though all the troops and special guards on David's right and left. As he cursed, Shimei said, get out, you murderer, you scoundrel. The Lord has repaid you for all the blood you shed in the household of Saul. He was a big fan of Saul because he was from his family. He said, in whose place you've reigned. The Lord has given the kingdom into the hands, and here's where the knife goes in, okay? He's like, and by the way, I believe God is giving this kingdom to your son because you have been so awful. So here's the knife. In the hands of your son, Absalom, you have come to ruin because you're a murderer. Now, if you go back and look at this story a couple chapters before, you'll realize David, when he became king, said, hey, I love Saul's son Jonathan. We were best friends. He asked all of his people. He says, hey, how can I show kindness to this family of Saul? Even though Saul was trying to kill him all the time, he's like, I want to repay. I want to be good. Right? So this is kind of unwarranted, but either way, still kind of tough. So David's in a chariot. There's horses beside him. It's like a guard, presidential guard, all that. They're all beside him. They're protectors. They're the bad guys. They're the tough guys. And this guy comes up and he's kicking dirt, and he's just a peasant. And he's like, you're terrible. You suck. We hate you. I'm glad you're going to die soon. I can't wait till your son takes over. So this really would have hurt deeply. I love it, though. So then David's right-hand man, Abishai, son of Zeruiah, said, look at this in verse 9. He said to the king, there's been no better Lawrence County response than right here, right? He said to the king, why should this dead dog curse my lord the king? Let me go over, cut off his head. You see, what do you do when people are trash talking you? How do you stop it? Abishai had a good plan. You cut off their head. They don't trash talk you anymore, right? Then you play kickball with their head, and it's like, hey, we're all happy, right? So he's furious. He's like, no one talks to you like that. And it's not really true. So he wants to step in, and he's like, I'll tell you what, I'll just cut off his head. We'll end this right now. I'm sure in that moment, Shimei was like, okay, I was just joking, right? But he just keeps going. He's like, no, I hate you. I don't care what happens to me. So we got two characters so far. We got Shimei, who he's mad, he's hateful. Life's been tough on him. You got Abishai, the right-hand man, and he's like, no, you don't do that to my buddy. But now we're going to see finally David. This is the king. Look at verse 11. It says, David then said to Abishai and all his officials, my son, my own flesh and blood, is trying to kill me. How much more than this Benjamite? Leave him alone. Let him curse, for the Lord has told him to. It may be. Now hear these words. He gets probably a tear in his eye now. Sad day for him. It may be the Lord will look upon my misery and restore me his covenant blessing instead of this curse today. So what's David say? Dude's like, just kill him. He's still yakking, screaming. And David says, maybe, just maybe, if I show kindness to this guy, even though he doesn't deserve it, then maybe God would show kindness to me. Pretty profound. So I want to give you today the three characters, the three stories, and basically the three responses we have, okay? This is how all of life works, and all of us fit in one of these at random times in our life, okay? Shimei was evil for good. David was even trying to do good. And he says, no, I want evil for the good that you've been trying to do. These are the mean people, and they're everywhere, right? I've been a mean person many times in my life. I've been a jerk. I've mistreated people. I've taken advantage of people. It's me, just as well as anyone else. But we don't want to live there, right? We don't want to be known as that person. But if we're honest, most of us, the majority of us, live in the middle camp. We just say, no, I don't want to be evil for no reason. But you come at me, bro, I'm coming back, right? Iron rule, I'm gonna do to you what you've done to me. Now, let me pause for just a second because I didn't say this in the beginning, okay? I am not talking about sexual abuse. I'm not talking about physical abuse. That's illegal, guys, okay? Like, call the cops. Literally, leave right now, call the cops. No, that's wrong. I'm talking about the boss, the coworker, the family member that you're just like, they are just mean, right? They're constantly trying to take advantage of us. They're trying to mistreat us. Well, what do we say? And all of us in here are like that. We're like, you should do that. If you have someone in your life who's mistreated you, and you came and told, we get you on stage today, and we're like, hey, this is Bob, and Bob's been mistreated, by this person, and he tells this story. All of us, if we're honest, would be like, you should pay him back. It feels right. But David does something that we learn from Jesus. It's pretty remarkable. He says, I want to return good for evil. So my story can either be I'm the jerk and the selfish one that always takes care of myself. I'm the predictable one that makes other people pay when they made me pay. Or I can have a remarkable story like David say, no, you know what? I'm actually going to flip the script here. I'm actually going to return good for evil. Now, if you don't follow Jesus, don't believe in God, you think you're watching online, you're like, you're turned on, you've never seen somebody with such a fat head, right? Okay, whatever reason you're here. Whatever reason you're here this morning, I want you to hear this, okay? If you don't follow Jesus, then you literally, here's the good news for you, you just get to pick one of these two, because you're going to pick one of those two. But if you claim to follow Jesus today, then this is what Jesus says, hey, as you follow me, this is the life that I live. This is the choices I make. And I got to be brutally honest with you guys. Daddy don't like that, right? And I know you guys don't either. We don't. None of us like that. Because it's like, no, that doesn't seem fair. It's not right. It's not just. No, I won't do that. Now, listen to what Jesus said in Luke 6. Now, I want you to think about, if you talk to most people who don't attend church, and you said, in the Bible Belt, said, hey, what do you think about Christians? Or at least the people in my family who don't believe in any of this. Here's what they would say. They would say they're hypocritical. They're self-righteous. They think they're better than us. They're very bigoted. They hate really kind of all groups. They're not loving, right? So what gets me is like, okay, that's very sad to me that that's the image. But now think about what Jesus says in Luke 6, verse 27. Jesus is talking to his followers who just started following him. He said, here's what I want you to do. Love your enemies. Now, if it just stopped there, I think I could be like, okay, Jesus, I can hang with you, right? Because at least face value, I'd be like, I know I need to love them, so I'm just not going to retaliate. But look what he goes. He goes further. He says, no, do good to those. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't like this. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those. Bless those. Bless those what? Who curse me, like Shimei did. Pray for those who mistreat you. Now, I just want to show a couple quick clips of this movie. But in this scene, as you're about to watch this movie, it's one of my favorite scenes of the whole movie, is basically Nelson Mandela, the new president, he says, hey, his head bodyguard comes to him. He's like, I need more guys. We're short on people. So he hires some of the old guys that used to work in the old regime that literally were trying to kill them, put them in prison. So check this out. This is what happens.
You look agitated, Jason.
Well, that's because there are 4 special branch cops in my office.
Oh, what did you do?
Nothing. But they say they're the presidential bodyguards and they have orders signed by you.
Ah, yes. Well, these men are special trained by SAS. They have lots of experience. They protected the clerk.
Yes, sir, but it doesn't mean that they have to come.
You asked for more men, didn't you?
Yes, sir. I asked.
When people see me in public, they see my bodyguards. You represent me directly. The Rainbow Nation starts here. Reconciliation starts here.
Reconciliation, sir.
Yes, reconciliation, Jason.
Comrade President, not long ago, these guys tried to kill us. Maybe even these 4 guys in my office tried and often succeeded.
Yes, I know. Forgiveness starts here, too. Forgiveness liberates the soul. It removes fear. That is why it is such a powerful weapon.
So, someone mistreats me. Someone's mean to me. Again, like I told you, we're not talking big stuff. We're not talking illegal. We're just talking kind of a shady person that rubs us the wrong way, and they're always conniving, and they're scheming, and they're the politician type that you know they're telling you one thing, they're doing another. When they do something, I have a choice. I can do something to them, which is predictable, that we all want to do. That's where I'm at. Or, according to what Jesus said here, I can say, you know what? I'm going to do something for you. That's what Jesus said when he talked to his followers. He said, this is what you're going to be known by. Matter of fact, in verse 35, he says, but love your enemies, do good to them, lend to them without expecting anything back. I want you to actually even sacrifice. No. And all these guys would be like, and girls like, no, Jesus, they mistreat us. I know. But that's not fair. And when we hear, and here's the whole story of the Bible wrapped up in very simple. The gospel, the good news of the whole Bible is this, that God says, exactly. You know why? Because you were evil. I've been evil. We've all been evil. And you know what God said? He said, doesn't matter. I forgive you anyways. I know I need to try to earn it. You don't earn anything. You don't need to. I care so much about you. And Jesus said, now as you follow me, you're going to love people the way that I love you. But what if they don't deserve it? What about when you don't deserve it? Right? You get to see yourself in this story, and that's why we get to act the way that we get to act. That's why he calls us that. And it's difficult. Like I said, if you're going to claim to follow Jesus today, and this is what I wrestle with so much, if I'm going to claim to be a follower of Jesus, then Jesus said, that's the way we live. That's what you'll be known by, the way you love others. I don't love that. I wrestle and struggle with that. So today as we close, I'll be fast. I want to tell you a story. I want to tell you a story, and I want to give you 2 questions that I'm going to kind of challenge you to wrestle with. So I want the story, 2 questions, and then I promise you get to be out here, okay? So here's the story. About 14 years ago, this couple comes to me and say, hey, we want to get married. So I meet with them. We do the pre-counseling stuff, blah, 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 whatever. And I tell them, I make the joke, but it was serious at that time. I said, by the way, all the weddings I've done up till now, I've never had one divorce. I'm batting 1,000, baby. So I just looked at him, kind of joking, but being serious, like, so don't get divorced, right? Got to keep my record. That was kind of the running joke. Well, they actually were the first couple I ever married. About 2 years later, she calls me. She's frantic, and she says, hey, so this, is about 10 years ago, 11 years ago. She says, hey, I just found out he's been cheating. He's been cheating for a while. It's like 8 months or a year or something. And she's like, and she's losing it, but she's kind of calm. At that point, they had like maybe a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. And she said this, she was like, I'm willing to make it work. I'm devastated, but I'm willing to make it work. Could we meet with you? I was like, okay, sure, absolutely. So I'm like, get with him, give me his number, I'll reach out to him. Well, reach out to him, and he says, I'm not meeting with anybody. I'm with this new girl. I like her better. We're done. She can try to work on it all she wants. So he's pretty kind of just out there. I'm like, okay. So then it's like, go back to her, and like, he's saying he doesn't want to make this work. Well, time goes by, and of course, they end up getting divorced, and it was the plan where I think she had the kids all the time except every other weekend, then he would get them, and she reaches out to me again about a year into that situation, and she said, Trent, can we talk? So we meet, we talk, and here's what she says, and she's devastated. He's been with like 2 different girls, 2 different women at this time. She's still single, trying to raise these 2 kids, trying to find work, all this. And here's what she said. She said, here's my problem. She said, every time my 2 go stay with him for just the weekend, they come back and they hate me. Why do they hate you? And she said, because my husband tells them all this stuff. He tells them that it's your mom's fault. She was never a good mom. She's never been a good wife. She said, they literally come back brainwashed. And then I spent a week or a week and a half where they only hardly talk to me. And then it finally gets a little better, and then there they go again. And she's like, I don't know what to do. And she said this. She said, I made a decision when we were divorced. I will never, ever dishonor their dad in front of them. Even though I don't think much of him right now, it's still their dad, I won't do it. And even saying they're here now, I'm like, that's impressive. I wouldn't do that, right? I mean, it's kind of amazing. And she said, but it's so hard. And she said, when I know every time coming back, she said, the only thing I've had a rule is they come and they say, well, you know, Dad said you did this. She'll say, guys, that's not true. That's all she'll say. But she said, I'll never trash him. I'll never whatever. So she has tears in her eyes. She's telling me this. And she looks at me and she says, what should I do? You guys feeling the tension like if you were me at that point? Well, let me give you a background about me, okay? I'm the worst counselor you'll ever meet. If you have problems, do not come to me. I will mess you up worse. So I gave her the greatest counselor advice I knew. Because she looks at me and she is distraught. She's like, tell me, just tell me how to respond, what to do. And I literally in that moment, with all the wisdom I've accumulated all these years, said such a profound thing. I said, what do you think you should do? Right? That's translation, I don't have a clue, you're on your own, right? I said, and she got quiet and she said, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. And she left. Prayed for her, she left. I would like to tell you over the next couple of years, oh, it got better and he had to change it. He didn't. He kept trashing her. She kept saying, that's not true. I'm not going to bash your father. But here's the amazing thing that happened. Just a few years back, now one of those kids is like 21, one of them's, I don't know, like 19. And here's what I've watched. I've watched slowly but surely these kids realize, you know, Dad's saying a lot of stuff, but it doesn't really match up once we start seeing. I mean, he's saying all this, but sometimes we go and he's not even there. He's somewhere else. He doesn't have time for us. So over time, it started converting a little bit where now at this point, if I brought this family on stage, they don't even like their dad. Now, here's the part. If you're like me, you're like, yes, we like that. That's not what we were aiming for. She doesn't even want that. But here's why I think that's such a remarkable thing to close on. She decided, and here's the thing you have to decide. When this is all said and done, what story am I going to tell? When this is all said and done, what story will my kids tell about me and how I responded when someone mistreated me? What story will I be able to tell 40 years from now when people say, that's actually pretty remarkable that you chose the high road? Because I wouldn't have. I would have just matched them tooth for tooth, eye for eye. I know, because that's what everybody does. But what would you have chose in that moment to say, I'm going to respond in kindness with evil. I'm going to show good for evil. So as we close today, I'm going to give you just two questions, okay? First question is this. If you're in the middle of this right now, here's what I want you to ask yourself. When it's all said and done, what story do I want to tell? Do I want it to be mean? Do I want it to be predictable? Or do I maybe want it to be actually remarkable that I chose the higher road? And then the second question, and this is the one I've been struggling with because I've got a few situations. It's kind of even funny. This week had someone kind of blasting me. It wasn't even true story. You know, it happens, right? It's part of life. A while back, that happened even in this church. Someone said some things, again, not true, but it's part of it, right? And both those times I go back and I always think of David and Jesus like, what do I do though? Because I deep down want to get online and defend myself and say, wait, now hold on. Let me tell you what, da-da-da. Because one of the guys was actually, he was the wrong one. It's like, no, I'm going to choose, God. I trust you. Take care of this. Take the high road, right? I wish I could say I've done that a lot of times, but I haven't. So here's the question. What would it look like for you to return good for evil? What story do I want to tell? And what would it look like if I were to return good for evil? We're going to watch this, it's just like 1 minute, okay? And then we're going to pray. And here's the reason I love this. So if you caught in the very beginning, Nelson Mandela becomes president. He's watching a game, and he's like, wait a minute. Half our country, this white group, part of this old system, they literally cheer for our team, the African rugby team. But he said all of the other group, they cheer for England because they hated that team. They hated their country's team for what it stood for. So you get to the final game. Of course, Matt Damon's a stud. My wife loves him. I knew she'd like this just so she can look at young Matt David for a minute. But he calls the timeout, and as you know, fairy tale story, they're about to win the championship. But I want you to hear one thing he says in this final clip.
Penalty against Green. Too many guys off their feet. At the runs. Speak to your team. Yes. Heads up! Look in my eyes. Do you hear? Listen to your country. 7 minutes. 7 minutes. Defense, defense, defense. This is it. This is our destiny. Come on, come on. No!
So as we pray today, okay, and the reason I am with that, one, it's a pretty cool part of it, but at the very end, you look, he's like, listen to the crowd, but he says this is our destiny. This is the story we're going to tell. Has it been hard? Yes. Did it seem fair? No. Do we wish it on anyone? No, no, no. But at the end of the day, what story? What are we going to be known as? And I hope for you, if you're a follower of Jesus, you make a decision, say, you know what? I'm going to be known as the one who actually does the third option, who takes it a different way. And I want to give you a phrase because I learned this so much from this young lady that I told the story about. And here it is, and I think it's so profound as we close. She taught me, you will never get ahead trying to get even. Do you know that? You'll be more miserable. You'll turn into now scheming, and you'll lay in bed and think of more ways to fight back, and it'll consume your life, and unforgiveness will rule your heart. But one day, you'll step back and say, no, if I could tell a different story, it would be the one that says, I realize the only way I pull ahead is by me making a choice not to get even. I'm going to get better. I'm going to do better. I'm going to choose better. I'm going to choose the way of Jesus. So as we pray today, I want you to take this home with you, okay? You will never, ever pull ahead by trying to get even. Let's pray. If you would, just close your eyes for a second. Jesus, we do thank you today. And God, you know this is not one I even want to do, as I think about people in my life right now. And they are schemers. And they take advantage. They're not honest. They're selfish. And sometimes, God, that even affects me personally. God, you know, for me personally, there's people in my life that affect my family. But today I pray that all of us could step back and ask ourselves, what story do we want to tell? Do we want to be predictable or remarkable? This is our destiny. Help us to make that choice. And Jesus says we all struggle, and as we all get angry and we say things like, yeah, but they don't deserve it. It's not fair. Hope you'll remind us today that that's exactly what the gospel is. It's the most unfair thing in the universe. Because God, your Father, looks at us and says, you have no clue how much I love you. You can put your fist in my face. You can scream back like Shimei. You can curse me. And I'll still show you kindness because I love you that much. So much so that he gave his one and only Son to come to earth, to be a sacrifice because you love us that much. So as we struggle with forgiveness, as we struggle with dealing with the difficult and the mean people, maybe even bad, I pray you'd help us see that we are those same people and you are willing to forgive us every single time. So today, if that's you, I just want you to join me in kind of a simple prayer here and just say, Father, help me to forgive. Help me to love the way you've loved me. That I can live out the gospel, this good news, every day of my life as I love others. As Jesus tells us before we close in prayer, this is how you'll know that you're my disciples. Your love for one another. God, please let that be said about us here. the way we treat those who are kind to us, and the way we treat those who are unkind. Because God, we know we'll never get ahead by trying to get even. We ask this in your Son's name, and amen. All right, guys. Hey, so glad that you're here. Love seeing you. Hope you have an amazing week. Grab a backpack if you didn't. We'd love you to help out. We'll see you next week. Take care.